never been so jealous of a fork in my life.
Jack Reacher is back. Reacher arrived by car, unusual for him.
So?
Just then, a young boy stepped out, only to be abducted by armed men. Reacher intervened.
No, please, I'm not gonna hurt you.
But then he fired a gun at the police. Now pursued by campus security, he shook them off, leaving the boy behind to steal a car. The boy, Richard Beck, revealed his father's wealth made him a frequent target. He'd been kidnapped before. The man who died in the explosion? His bodyguard. Richard's home was a vast estate. At the gates, they were stopped by Paulie, Beck's massive enforcer. But Richard handed Reacher a gun, securing entry. During dinner, Security Chief Chapman Duke arrived. Beck wanted to see him. Suspicious, Beck tested Reacher, but he confidently handed over his fingerprints.
I gripped it firmly so you'll have a clear set of prints to run.
Later, Beck invited Reacher to the warehouse. He offered a reward and tested his nerve with Russian roulette. 4 shots in, Reacher didn't flinch. He passed. Duke called him crazy. Reacher claimed he knew the round was a dud. It wasn't. Reacher noticed liquid flowing underground. Days earlier, Reacher had been tracking someone but lost him. His attempt to run a plate check hit a dead-end system maintenance. Turner unavailable. At the Yorkie Motel, federal agents arrived. Grabbing only his faithful toothbrush, Reacher bolted straight into Susan Duffy, DEA. She and her agents, Elliott and Villanueva, were investigating Zachary Beck and his carpet business. Bizarre. Susan wanted Reacher's help. He had one condition: find a man, shot in the head, dumped in water. They did. He survived, but doctors suspected he was faking amnesia. A John Doe. Reacher identified him, Lieutenant Colonel Francis Xavier Quinn, a military traitor. An insider erased his identity. Meanwhile, Susan had botched a bust on Landra Kingpin Prado. Evidence lost, her team pulled. But she wasn't giving up. Prado had met Beck, reaching out to an old informant, Teresa, a teenage girl Susan had flipped. Teresa went undercover at Bizarre Bazaar. Then she vanished. A week ago, Susan was desperate to find her. She showed Reacher Teresa's hoop earrings, her only clue. Their plan? Fake kidnap Richard.
You hold him indefinitely.
If Reacher rescued him, Beck would trust him. To take out Richard's bodyguard, they'd fake his death with a flashbang disguised as a grenade. Then, they'd plant drugs on him, getting him detained until the mission was done. Elliott, unthreatening in appearance, played the kidnapper. To make it real, they used blanks and special effects.
Billy!
If Richard made it to the police, they'd kill a cop, adding chaos. Illegal guns, marked blanks, switch cars, every detail planned. And Reacher's cover? Billy's LP collection, Ethel Merman's disco album. What the? The wild card campus police would be dealt with accordingly. Communication? Government satellite phone. Everything was set. Reacher got in perfectly. Richard's bodyguard knew nothing about Beck's operation. Duke took food down. Liquid seeped up. A hidden space? In the dead of night, Reacher slipped into the warehouse. Behind a concealed door, food scraps and a single earring. Teresa had been there. Teresa was already gone. As Reacher returned to his room, a crew member arrived. They'd found the kidnapper's vehicle. Thinking fast, Reacher rushed inside. When Duke unlocked the door, Reacher casually walked out of the bathroom. Duke ordered him to check the evidence storage with Angel. Problem: Beck still thought Richard's Audi had exploded. They had to get rid of it before the truth got out. On the way, Angel slipped up. Beck wasn't the real boss. Someone else was pulling the strings. At the lot, the Audi was blocked. Reacher stalled.
The fuck you doing, man?
Angel offered a cop $500, then prepared to kill him. Reacher stopped him. or him. Just as they were leaving, Angel spotted the Audi. It was too clean. Suspicious, he inspected it, but Reacher pointed out a different license plate. Susan had covered their tracks. Back at the mansion, a maid searched Reacher's room. Beck's orders. Before he could rest, Duke sent him on a delivery run.
Shit.
Beck, for all his ruthlessness, was still a loving father to Richard. At the gym, Paulie challenged Reacher to a bench press contest.
Bench press proves nothing.
Instead, Reacher tricked him into Bavarian arm wrestling and humiliated him in one move. Before a fight broke out, Duke intervened. Reacher's mission? Drive to Connecticut. Do not open the cargo. He contacted Susan. They'd check the load at a rest stop. Neagley ran background checks on Duke, Paulie, and Angel. At the stop, drug dogs searched the truck. Nothing but carpets.
No drugs.
Another test. Another Russian roulette. They arranged to meet at the next stop. Susan found Beck's shipments rarely faced customs inspections. At the next stop, Reacher dropped off Susan, took a GPS device from Villy, and moved on. At the destination, a gang member checked the cargo. Just carpets. They handed Reacher a return truck. Back at the warehouse, Angel was waiting. He had been tracking Reacher's GPS movements. He saw the gaps Reacher's stalling. His concern for the cop, the clean getaway car.
But a cop.
What he thinks of what I just want.
Reacher killed him instantly. Shoving the body under a desk, he walked out to Duke.
Angel talks too much.
Reacher returns to the mansion as if nothing happened after killing Angel. Duke informed Reacher that Angel had requested a private meeting with Beck. Through the housekeeper, Annette, he learns about a mechanic named Rusty. When Angel doesn't respond, Beck calls for Reacher. But something didn't add up. None of the kidnappers or truck drivers matched Reacher's description. Cornered, Richard uses his wits to escape the situation.
They wanted to send some kind of message.
Reacher claimed they were sending a message about the carpet business using Richard as leverage. Later, he receives intel on Zachary's organization. Meanwhile, Neagley discovers that Quinn is still alive. Reacher immediately seeks Susan's help. Together, they slip past tight security and return to Bizarre Bazaar. Susan digs into Angel's laptop, while Richard investigates the true nature of the business. But no matter how much they search, no suspicious traces can be found. Meanwhile, Angel's body was being disposed of. Just then, Beck's men appeared personally, sending them to join Angel.
Is that blood?
Enemy spotted.
I used to be an adventurer like you. Then I took an arrow in the knee.
The next day, the mansion is in chaos over the disappearance of two drivers. Richard heads out with Reacher to buy a birthday gift for Beck. There, he learns that Beck has a superior named McCabe. Seizing the moment, he tries to probe into the rug business.
They just sell rugs.
Reacher discreetly shares information while pretending to use the restroom. To get higher-level intel, he decides to lure Duke out using Angel's email. But then Richard runs into Beck's old classmates, who have a grudge against him. His father is Beck. D. Beck. What the? And at that moment,
It's not.
Reacher arrived and shut it down immediately. Gaining trust, Richard reveals the truth. McCabe manipulated Beck's business and used Reacher to control him. Meanwhile, Susan identifies McCabe at the docks. He was Quinn. Back at the mansion, Reacher received Duke's takedown signal from Angel's email, just as planned. At the trap, but Duke hesitated. Reacher goaded him with a smirk. Tell the boss you were too scared to go if that's what you want. As Duke steps forward, Reacher swiftly takes him down. With a staged act, the plan succeeds. In the end, Reacher pins everything on the dead Angel.
One of them did drop this.
This is Angel's gun.
Reacher was the only man Beck had left.
Angel Doll was the one who set us up.
Beck was completely fooled, and McCabe appointed Reacher as head of security. Using the excuse of picking up takeout, she shows him a photo of McCabe, and he is none other than Xavier Quinn.
The guy I thought I killed.
In the past, Reacher was investigating a classified intelligence leak within the military. His superior, Garber, brought in Staff Sergeant Dominique Cole as backup. After reviewing the clean criminal record of suspect Gorowski, Cole deduced that he had acted under coercion. Impressed, Reacher acknowledged Cole's skills, and together they tailed Gorowski. Gorowski used a trash bin to exchange information, but it was a decoy. The real intel had already been moved.
He's a psychopath.
Once captured, he revealed that his daughter had been kidnapped and that Xavier Quinn was behind it. Further investigation exposed Quinn's dealings with a Syrian spy, Safwan Qasim. Reacher took Qasim down and secured evidence of Quinn's illegal activities. Giving credit to Cole, he sent him to handle Quinn's arrest, but hours passed with no response.
Got him, cuffed. Heading in. Sir, I told her not to call me sir the first day we met.
Upon arriving at the scene, Reacher found a slain private and Cole missing. At the same time, he finally obtained Quinn's juvenile detention records, revealing narcissistic personality disorder and sociopathic tendencies from an early age.
Do it once, do it right.
Tracking Quinn to a remote farmhouse, Reacher stormed in only to find Cole had already been brutally tortured and murdered. As Quinn prepared to flee with his money, Reacher effortlessly took him down.
Gun.
The girl and I were in all this together.
Even in defeat, Quinn kept running his mouth, suggesting they worked together for profit. But Reacher wasn't buying it. Dragging him to a cliffside,
Dominique. That was her name.
he shot him in the head, but Quinn's skull was too thick, allowing him to miraculously survive. Medical reports suggested he was faking amnesia, though it wasn't certain. After 6 months of treatment, he vanished without a trace, labeled only as John Doe. Meanwhile, Susan confesses that she had coerced Teresa, who was involved in drug crimes, into becoming an informant by threatening her with prison. Reacher proposed they work together to set things right. Returning to Beck's estate, Reacher noticed how the housemaids were talking about Beck's upcoming 50th birthday. Beck had lost his wife 15 years ago, and since then, he no longer had any real people left by his side. The next morning, Annette gifted Reacher a set of clothes. Moment of prompting A. What the? Later, he trained Beck's son, Richard, teaching him how to fight while advising him to understand his father's struggles. But then, Angel's laptop had a tracking app installed, and McCabe had sent men to retrieve it. Meanwhile, Susan and Billy, searching for Teresa with the laptop in hand, found themselves in a dead zone with no signal. Will they make it out alive?
Went inside, ain't supposed to be. Kill him.
Quinn has sent his thugs to retrieve Angel's missing laptop. Reacher, unable to reach Susan and Billy, sends a warning through Elliot. Then, after joining the thugs, he puts a bullet in the back of their heads. Meanwhile, Susan gets caught in a shootout and drops her federal agent badge. Reacher, to avoid suspicion, spares one thug and retrieving the badge. Following Reacher's advice, Susan ditches Angel's tracked laptop, while Reacher pretends to chase after it, deliberately trolling the thug. In the end, the thug give up the pursuit, but realized that Susan and Billy are federal agents, and he told Quinn about it. Back at the mansion, Reacher assists Harley the thug in disposing of the bodies, watching as he flushes them away like waste, letting the waves carry them off. No names, no traces, just discarded corpses. What a nasty motherfuckers. Reacher, who values loyalty, is disgusted but plays along for now. Meanwhile, Susan backs up Angel's laptop and decides to resume the search for Teresa.
Reacher!
Beck, furious over Reacher's failure, informs him that McCabe has sent a new enforcer.
You like the coffee? It's from a feline's asshole. Something in their digestive system improves the taste.
When one of the thugs harasses Annette, Reacher instantly puts him in his place.
A cat's asshole.
Yes, it's cat shit. Back in his room, Reacher hides Susan's badge. but Annette arrives to thank him with a cake. Oh, this looks good. Meanwhile, Elliot fails to refuse a bodyguard's request for a cigarette. And in the end,
One time. Make it count.
Jesus Christ. By the time Susan returns, Elliot is nothing but a cold corpse. Reacher gets the call and immediately devises a plan. Susan cuts the power at the compound, while Reacher ties Polly's leg to the front gate, warning that Angel's men might attack before heading out. At the same time, Quinn, having sensed a mole, orders an internal purge. Reacher meets Billy and flips his car over in the middle of a narrow road, then waits for the bodyguard to arrive. Meanwhile, thugs start searching Reacher's room. As soon as the bodyguard arrives, boom!
This is for Elliot.
Reacher returns to the mansion, but something feels off. The place is eerily quiet. The mole has already been dealt with. Beck claims he found the traitor and shows Reacher a phone. The truth? Annette, the maid, was actually an ATF agent,
Let me talk to her.
I gave her a crack to the head to get her to cooperate.
but she was already beaten to death by Polly. A humiliating moment in Reacher's entire story.
Doesn't kill everybody.
On the way to dispose of Annette's body, Harley keeps running his mouth. Reacher switches him off. Watching these monsters kill without a second thought, Reacher finds himself deep in contemplation. Then Richard approaches him, revealing that not just he, but even his father fears these men. Regaining focus, Reacher tells Susan that this isn't a drug operation. It's an arms smuggling ring. Susan responds with even bigger news. Quinn is preparing for a massive deal. With a lot on his mind, Reacher spends the night in thought. Then, suddenly, Quinn summons Beck and Reacher to the warehouse. Facing Quinn is an obvious risk, but there's no choice. Hoping that he truly lost his memory, this time, he plans to eliminate any loose ends for good. Susan tries to stop him for Teresa's sake, but Reacher tells her to let go of hope. Instead of hanging up, he leaves the line open, letting her listen in. Meanwhile, at Bazaar, final preparations for the arms deal are underway, and their true boss is waiting.
I've been waiting for this moment for some time now.
Quinn's furious. Turns out Beck brought in an ATF agent. Luckily, Quinn doesn't remember who put a bullet in his head.
Only smart thing you've done in weeks is hire this guy.
Now, Teresa? He's planning to hand her over to the gun buyers as a gift. To move his business, Quinn borrowed money from the Russian mafia. He sticks to paying the interest, asking for more time. He then starts investigating who has been looking into his operation. Reacher realizes that Beck was an arms smuggler, and that he has been absorbed by a greater evil Quinn. Susan tracks down the tailor shop that made Teresa's dress, and manages to get the client's number from the tailor. Meanwhile, Reacher heads into town with Richard, pretending they're just going to fix a toy gun. He meets up with Susan, returns her badge, and shares what he's learned about the Russian mafia. And then, after Reacher makes it back from a dangerous mission, Susan does something bold, something she might not get another chance to do.
I know it's important to you, so I want to make sure we...
What the shit? That is not happening twice.
But for the record, you kissed me.
And just then, Villy shows up. Richard sees him, and it clicks. He's the cop who got shot by Reacher. God damn it, Villy. Reacher lays it all out, tells Richard who they are, and that they're looking for a woman named Teresa. McCabe's going down, but after that, his father, Beck, won't be walking away either. And one more thing. Beck, he's already in prison. Not behind bars though, he's trapped in a place called Quinn. When Richard comes back, he's got that look like he just bit into something sour. Beck asks what happened. Luckily, Richard covers, says he ran into those bullies again, and Reacher took care of it. Beck warns him to back off. He'll protect his son himself. Rock Creek, Virginia. Armed men break into a soldier's home. It's Powell,
Is this really Major Reacher?
the one who ran the plate on Quinn's vehicle. Even under brutal torture, he doesn't say a word.
Cut him from tongue to tail to let him bleed out.
Fucking psychopath. Chicago. Neagley's office gets a few uninvited guests. Oh, come on. Fooled you. Fooled you again. Rest in peace, bro. And the other one, crying on the floor.
Please call 911.
All he did was interrupt snack time. He says he was hired by Kostopoulos. She shares that with Richard immediately.
Is that 911?
Shut up.
Hey, can you call me an ambulance?
You're an ambulance.
Reacher immediately calls the 110, tells them to send armed backup to Powell. Guess it's late though. But Quinn figures it out. It's the 110 that's been tracking him. He heads straight to the house. Beck tells him Reacher's one of them.
Reacher was not in death.
But by then, Reacher's already on the move. Reacher calls in Susan for help, then disappears into the woods.
Spread out.
The hunt begins. Neck snapped. Knife in. Jesus! Reacher escapes into town, hides out in a laundromat run by an elderly Asian couple. Does some laundry, grabs a drink.
Last cup I had came from a cat's asshole.
Thankfully, it's not cat shit coffee. Meanwhile, a furious Quinn plays Russian roulette, using Richard as the toy.
Balls finally drop. Okay, go ahead.
After a small act of defiance from Richard, the tension spikes.
I'll fucking give you anything.
Now, Quinn wants the other ear. Beck's right. Reacher links up with Susan. Now that their cover's blown, Quinn's bound to be more careful. Just then, a call log comes in traced from the number the tailor gave them. It leads to Harley and a place called Port Rom. There, on a boat, they find another trace of Teresa, and Harley still switched on. He says he hid Teresa here once, but after learning who Reacher really was, he moved her somewhere else. Claims he doesn't know where. A useless thug. Switched off. With the evidence on Teresa destroyed, Reacher makes a call. There's a collaborator on the inside. Time to head to LA. Meanwhile, Neagley finds Kostopoulos. The moment she says Xavier Quinn, the guy freezes. Turns out, it's not the first time. Quinn once stole a family's business, and when they reported him, he wiped out the whole family.
So, you gonna shoot me?
No.
Susan and Reacher land in LA. She shows him a video, the one that got her kicked off the case. Footage from a private property. The Prado deal. Darian Prado, major drug lord in LA, bought weapons from Beck and Quinn to take out his rivals. However, Reacher's focus is clear now. He's going after Teresa, not Quinn. And okay, good guy confirmed. The next day, they confront Darian. He's not interested in talking, so they play dirty. Claim he shoved a DEA agent. Tell him it could get messy. He caves. Take him to his hideout, an art gallery. Reacher drops it 18 U.S. Code Section 3559C. The three strikes law. Darian already has 2 violent felonies on record.
I'd fight you, but I'd never beat up someone who's handicapped.
He's pretending to be disabled. Turns out, he threatened a doctor for the diagnosis. And extortion? That's strike 3.
1, 2, 3 strikes. You're fucked, asshole.
They get him to set up a meet with Beck.
Parking pass. Might want to call a lawyer.
They're back east watching the deal unfold.
How do you get a rug burn here? You two were supposed to be working in LA.
Shut up, old man. Neagley meets Beck. His ear's been cut off. She says Reacher sent her and tells him McCabe's real name is Xavier Quinn, a man who's done this before. Stole a business, then killed the whole family. But all Beck knows is that the buyer's coming from Yemen. Meanwhile, Teresa was being held somewhere else by Quinn. The buyers from Yemen ordered a massive weapons stash for a coordinated terror attack. At the same time, Richard is fixing up a gift for his dad, a model just like the toy gun Beck lost when he was a kid. Beck says after his wife died, his son was shattered, and in trying to protect him from ever feeling that pain again, he ended up being too hard on him. Now, with all sincerity, he says he's sorry.
I will never let them hurt you again.
Neagley spots the buyers from Yemen. Quinn tells Beck to send the weapons at 9 p.m. to a salvage yard, right in the middle of Beck's birthday party. He shares the time and location with Reacher.
Bullhead salvage.
But Susan wants to make it official. Reacher's not so into that. Susan reports the death of an ATF agent. Furious, the ATF takes over the case and lets her stay on just to watch. Reacher says they need to send people to the mansion too, not just the salvage yard.
And you are Reacher.
But he's a nobody to them. The idea of Quinn getting caught and ending up comfortable in prison? It burns. But Susan reminds him, if he can't pay up, the Russian mob will take care of that. Right now, they need to save Teresa.
I can't let her become my goal.
That night, Beck tells Richard to stay in his room when the clock hits 9. At the salvage yard, ATF agents are in position. When the weapons arrive, Reacher jumps out. He grabs the sniper rifle, ready to end this.
Get this gun out of my hands without killing me. Step back.
He's not bluffing. He warns Neagley to keep her out of what's coming. Then the buyers arrive, but she's still tailing them? And they're heading straight for Beck's mansion. Then,
It's a trap.